Hello, it's Fernando Labastida once again on another special episode of the Viral Genius podcast. This is where we're previewing the speakers and the talks for the upcoming Strike Marketing Summit. Today we have Bryan Eisenberg, the legendary Bryan Eisenberg. He is the co-founder of Buyer Legends, and he and his brother Jeffrey coined some of the most foundational terms that digital marketers use today, such as persuasion architecture and conversion rate optimization. Welcome to this segment of the podcast. And you're going to talk about the stories we sell
Correct.
at the Strike Marketing Summit. It's all part of this flywheel that we're talking about. Why don't you give us a little bit of a preview, an overview of the stories we sell, and why should people come and see your talk at the Strike Marketing Summit?
Oh, I've been saying it for years. Facts tell, but stories sell. And in a world with AI, what we're seeing, and I've been fascinated with this as of lately, looking at the way AI presents results when people are looking to answer questions is fundamentally going to change search behavior to the point. Mark Schaefer just shared a statistic this past week that leads from AI convert 23 times, 23 times as much as an SEO lead. And I just want you to think about that just from a basic human fundamental perspective. Search, and I've been involved with search since before Google, from the early days of Alta Vista and Yahoo, like way back. I was probably among the first 1,000 SEO practitioners out there. And that's how we got into conversion rate optimization. The whole goal was to organize and present all this information that allowed you to go and sort through it. But the problem is today we live in a world that's noisy. We're busy. We're overwhelmed. We're overscheduled. I mean, you just told me you were call after call after call. That's a typical day for everybody today. So now we got, Gemini and ChatGPT and Copilot and Perplexity and like all these, Claude, all these other AI big LLMs, and people are going there. They're asking a question, and they're giving them 1, 2, maybe 3 to 5 if you ask for it choices, and they're not ranking them. They are recalling them. They're telling you the story of these companies. And I put it this way, in the old world of SEO, if you just got all the fundamentals done, you built more links, and I'm going to pick a boring business because I love boring businesses, HVAC. There really is not much of a difference between the typical HVAC company that most people can tell, right? They're going to sell you a new system, repair a system, install a system, fix your duct. That's about it. There's not magic, change your thermostats. They all kind of do the same thing. So what makes one become $100 million HVAC company and others struggle around the million mark? It's the stories they sell. I love using this example of my friend Ken Goodrich, who built Gettle up and sold it for $100 million. He built that company up on 2 foundational stories: his origin story, which was a big part of his logo, and then, of course, his belief story. And I talk about that in my book, Be Like Amazon. If you remember the example of the shiny red screws, it's a great example. He believed everything needed to be perfectly tight, so he used shiny red screws. So not only did he believe it and his staff believe it, but the customers could also witness it. Now, today it's different, because today, to stand out in AI, you need the same principles, but it's working a little bit differently.
Yeah. 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 So, so that's fascinating, I'm starting to see a theme lately because, everyone and their grandmother are using AI to write content. Content is growing exponentially on social media. If it wasn't before, now that we've really put the afterburners on it with AI. And so right now I'm sort of starting to see a trend of people saying, okay, but AI can't do this or AI can't do that. And this is one of those, I think this is one of the most powerful things that AI can't do, which is to weave that unique story that only you as a human being with your particular history, your particular DNA, your particular set of beliefs and parents and experiences can tell that story.
Correct. And I put it this way to people, when I was growing up, right, and I'm talking about my early 20s and stuff like that. I remember seeing, studies out there that talked about how the average person would have about 500 marketing messages a day. And I thought, wow, that's a lot. By the time social media started coming out and being more visible around, 2005, 2007-ish, those numbers were around 5,000 messages a day. Today, with infinite scroll, okay, and shorts and reels and all of that, TikTok, they're talking about over 15,000 messages a day. So how do you break through the noise? And you've got to get really simple, really impactful, really quickly. And what happens is for the AI, the way the AI is working, if you're just saying the same thing about everyone, oh, we have our trained technicians, we're family owned, we provide great service, blah 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 blah. Yeah, it sounds like Charlie Brown. Why should they remember you? If you can't be something newsworthy, remarkable, month after month, right? That's what great reviews are about. That's what, right. That's what's driving the engines today. And the key to it is to tell the story and have your customers share that story in the language that you want them to. True word of mouth marketing, building in those what we call those brandable chunks, those unforgettable pieces that are only yours, and then they show up and they show up um in the AIs, and all of a sudden you're getting those leads and they're converting it 23 times, and you're like, wow, that was easy, because everything now is aligned because you're telling a great story, not only in your marketing but in your offices with your clients. They're sharing it with their family and friends, and it's growing. The AI gets that. You're putting it out as news, people are writing about you, and all of a sudden you're dominating the market, and the AI can't help but recall you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's awesome, and so I think you were gonna use, 1 or 2 examples in your talk to kinda illustrate that point,
Yeah, it
this
was
interview is to kinda tease your talk, so I don't wanna give away the farm, but maybe if you could tease us with a little, short
sure.
example.
So, when we first started, back online, there was very little content, right? I mean, we basically put out about 2 million words around conversion optimization before 2005, 2006, like before most people who are in CRO even existed.
2,000,000,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, almost 2 million words. But there were no words out there. There was nobody talking about it. Now everybody's just piling on, saying the same old things. Nothing's really brand new. And I don't want people to think about, okay, this is only an online thing. Oh, this is only for big businesses. We have used this for all kinds of businesses. And I'll give you a little teaser example, like you said. So I've been working with my good friend now, Dr. Matt Delgado. He's a chiropractor here based in Austin. Now, when you think chiropractor, like most people, you think, okay, I'm going to come in, pop my back, pat my neck, get me feeling better, and I leave. And maybe I get 2 or 3 days of relief, and then I'm back again, hopefully in another couple of weeks to kind of get readjusted. He was one of those guys who he got early on social media, built a huge following, had millions of views on his Instagram, on his YouTube channel, all those famous Cairo videos. But it didn't really sit with who his true character was. He had an old associate, who's kind of exploiting that a little bit, and he kind of got it like over the top. They were getting the views, but it wasn't getting the right business that he wanted. See, he was a gentleman who healed himself from an autoimmune disease. He had Graves' disease, coming out of chiropractic school in his first job, just completely burnt out, had to go to the desert, and he started healing himself because he had this core philosophy that human beings, that means you and I and everybody watching, we're more like plants than we are cars. That if you give us the right environment, we can heal ourselves. And I use that same thinking. My story about, how I transformed my health, a little over a year ago. And it was his words constantly in my head about how he believes the body can perform miracles. And I said, okay, well, I believe that, and I'm going to go make the right changes. And I took my blood sugar from 367 all the way down into, 80s, 90s, always comfortable, like never a problem anymore, and
Right.
completely changed my life. Now, one of the things that we've done with him is we realized that he moved well beyond that traditional chiropractic approach.
Right.
He when he first started, he was a great listener, so we used that in his early marketing, and that was really important. And then people mentioned that in their reviews, so that was really valuable. But he also did a lot of work with extremities. So he'd work on people's feet and knees, shoulders. Those were things that are very important to his methodology. But that was still when he was thinking skeletal adjustments. As he kept evolving and he's started experimenting with new techniques and he started getting some new insight into how people's nervous system was actually functioning
Yeah.
and how that function actually, you know, basically created everything that's happening in our lives, whether you have hormone imbalances, pain, poor sleep, poor fog. It's all related back to the nervous system. I mean, you and I learned that in fifth grade in biology, in high school, in elementary school biology, that the nervous system is the system that controls all the other systems.
Sure.
Duh. Okay. So we start talking, and one of his associates asked him a question about how would he solve a particular client's problem, and he started drawing on a map, and he said, okay, well, first I'd start with the nervous system, then I go to the extremities, and then I go to the ligaments to stabilize it. And as we started talking about this, I said, Matt, we need to come up with a name for this. You can't call it the LifeSpring method because no one's going to call it by your brand name. So, I mean, I remember the conversation. I was going on one of my daily walks, and we're talking and we're brainstorming, and we come up with it. And, Matt's a big country music star, star. He loves music. He loves sports. And we came up with this concept called the trichord method, playing on the concept of music, like three chords, because
Right.
it's three parts. Chords create resonance and harmony, just
Hmm.
like he wanted to get in your body. And so we started using that. And so now if you go ahead and you go to any AI and you type in the trichord method, go see what it says.
Right.
Now, what we're finding, it's not 100% perfect language as he has evolved now, and we'll fix that. We know exactly how to fix that. We'll get that fixed in the next couple of weeks. But it's 99% of the story, and it's so different than what anyone else is talking about. And his results are also miraculous. He's getting women who, haven't had periods, who are now getting periods all of a sudden, having kids, people who have migraines. It's a whole different methodology. But what we're also realizing is the language, the simplistic language of how he explains these things has powerful impact. And his customers are now using that language in the clinic, on social media, to the point where he got to go up and adjust the country music band Flatland Cavalry and explain the trichord method as he adjusted them in these musical terms to professional musicians. And of course, he was mind blown, but it makes sense because you're trying to create, that nervous system controls everything. So if we can get that adjusted, and he's got special techniques on how to do that, everything else just starts to heal itself, especially if you focus in on the right things. And I'm not going to give all his secrets away, but what we've done is we just keep pounding with more catchy brandable chunks that he uses, that he sees his clients use, that when he records YouTube videos with them, they're using that language.
Hmm.
One of the most recent ones we talked about, right? And I bug you about this one. How's your AQ today, my friend?
I don't think it's going too good. I think it's
You got a
is
low AQ today?
yeah, low AQ because I've been sitting on my ass all day on phone calls.
Yeah, and
AQ, ass quotient.
yeah, and the funny thing is, you and I laugh about it, but when he brings that up in the office and he just tells people, look, it's not like you have to go out and do heavy workouts every day. The body was meant to move. Our ancestors just 100 years ago were getting 20,000 steps. But if you're not getting at least 7,500, not just at one time, which is what I used to do before I got my blood sugar in place, but now I move every hour. I'm taking 3, 4, 20-minute walks a day, 10-minute walks a day. That's the difference. So my IQ is very high, right? Now not my IQ, not my EQ, my AQ is very, very high. So, when he does those things, or he brings out a prescription pad, okay, for someone who comes to him and says, yeah, and this just happened to a member of my family. They were explaining how, they've been traveling the last couple of weeks, working real hard, organizing a bunch of different events for work and social life. They've been eating kind of things that they know they're not supposed to. The sleep hasn't been so good. And he said, "Okay, before you leave, I'm gonna give you something." And, after he does the adjustments and all that, when he walks out of the room, he comes back and he hands them a prescription pad that says, "Put yourself in timeout."
Oh, no. Wow, wow.
Okay? And they laughed and they enjoyed the moment together, and they're like, "Yes, I'm gonna do that. I know exactly where I'm gonna put that in my house, and I'm gonna go do that." And it's those kinds of memorable moments, whether, like I said, they're in person, online, in your social media, in your podcast. If you're not dropping those memorable phrases, you know, I mean, you could see it even when you search for my names. How often will you find facts tell, stories sell associated with me? I've been saying that probably for 20 years, right? And
Yes.
that's why the story selling is so important as a phrase for me, right? We just need to keep repeating these phrases. So now, if you go ahead and look in ChatGPT, that I know you probably have the computer right in front of you, and you look for getting a timeout prescription, you might find Dr. Matt Delgado and the story about him giving out those timeout prescriptions.
Okay, I'm looking it up right now.
This
I'm
is
looking
real
it up.
time. I have not checked this.
Okay, timeout prescription is about to like a toddler. Uh, behavioral couples, stress management. Yeah, look at that.
Do you even see the little picture of his prescription pad?
Let me see. How are you spelling it?
How am I spelling what?
Timeout prescription. Out.
You can do timeout RX also
Okay,
if you
hold on.
want a
Oh, yeah, here
shortcut.
we go. Okay, here we go. Timeout RX, ChatGPT, Timeout RX, timeout prescription. Okay. No drinking, no driving off in anger, no disappearing, no using the break as a punishment. Okay, it's kind of used for couples therapy. Um,
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if he'll come up or not, right?
yeah,
But the whole point is it's something that he's, again, another thing that he's getting known for, and we're building brandable chunks around. Okay. Um, and again, you're right, it may not show up, and if maybe if we just type in, you know, I'm gonna try timeout RX chiropractic. That might be there it is. That comes up right away. And you'll see, kind of his story there. But again, that's just building up. And I'm showing that in a real example of how we're gonna build out that whole concept of, taking a timeout prescription to help your nervous system deal with all the overload that we're dealing with today.
yeah. Okay, well, that's fantastic. And your the concept of the stories you sell, people don't remember facts, people remember stories. That's such a fundamental part of the whole strike marketing concept because, what you are is your initial you're creating that vocabulary. You are very tight with Roy Williams, who said, he who controls the vocabulary controls the industry. Then you
Correct.
encapsulate that into a book, which I think you have like about 11 books to your name, 10 or 11 books to your name, right? And then you organize some kind of a lightning strike. In my case, it's a summit, but there are other things. You guys have done a lot of lightning strikes. Um, you speak on stages all over the place.
We got Seth Godin to blog about our god awful cover that turned us into New York Times bestsellers.
There
That was
you
a
go.
lightning
I mean,
strike.
you can't get any bigger than that, and then continuing the conversation so that, when you do search in ChatGPT, that your terms will come up. People will think about you only when they think about their particular problem. Like, for example, if their problem is triggered by sitting on their butts too much all day, they'll think about Ask Quotient and they'll think about the chiropractor, right? So, yeah, everybody, you should definitely attend Bryan's talk. It is The Stories We Sell, and it is on that Friday, the 12th of December, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. See you next time.
It is my pleasure.